Okay, so when you're running a CPA firm or any kind of accounting firm, um, it can really feel overwhelming, right? I
Yeah.
mean, how do you grow? How do you serve your clients better? And like, really, how do you build something that's sustainable and you're not just constantly putting out fires?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the core of what we're talking about today. And we've got some really interesting material to dig into, kind of like a roadmap for strategically scaling your practice without losing your mind in the process.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So what we want to do in this deep dive is really pull out some of those key strategies, those like nitty-gritty steps that can help you think differently about how you grow your fund.
Yeah, and it's not just about like expanding for the sake of expanding. It's about building real capacity, making your firm more like agile and efficient so that you can really compete. And what we've been looking at here really highlights some really important areas where firm leaders can kind of focus their energy.
Okay, so the first thing that really jumped out at me was this idea that you really need to understand where you are right now, right? It's
Yeah.
like setting a financial goal without even knowing your current income and expenses.
Yeah.
You're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
So this material really emphasizes taking a look at your firm's existing capacity. Like before you even start thinking about adding new clients or, expanding your services, and that means looking at things like how does work flow through your firm? How productive is your team? What are your clients actually demanding from you? All of that stuff.
Yeah, that's such a good point. You can't effectively scale a business that's already kind of struggling with inefficiencies.
Right.
So identifying those bottlenecks, where productivity just drops off or things get backed up, that's super important. And they had this really good suggestion, conducting internal audits, but also getting direct feedback from your team. What do you think about that? Why is that feedback from your staff so important?
Oh, I think it's so crucial because they're the ones living it every day, right?
Yeah.
They're in the trenches. So they're going to have the clearest sense of where those like friction points are. What are those processes that are eating up all their time? Or even maybe just the way you do things.
Totally. I
Yeah,
bet you there are things that could be done so much easier.
absolutely.
And leadership wouldn't even know where to start.
Exactly. And so often those little tweaks lead to the biggest improvements. So, and speaking of finding like new ways to work, one of the big shifts in the accounting world has been this move towards remote teams. I mean, have you seen this? It's kind of crazy how it's changing everything.
It's huge.
It is. This idea that you can build a really strong team without everyone being, i- in the same office.
Yeah.
Like it just opens up so many possibilities, right?
Right.
And the sources we're looking at, they talk about, the potential to lower your costs, give your employees more flexibility, and you can tap into this global talent pool,
Right. Yeah.
right? It's not about just filling a role. It's
Mhm.
about finding the best possible person for that role.
Yeah. And what's really interesting to me about all this is the technology that's making this all possible. Cloud accounting software. That's the backbone. That's what lets you collaborate, be efficient, and stay compliant even when your team's all over the place.
Right.
You mentioned cost savings, and they actually had a really specific suggestion about that. They were talking about, looking into firms like remote accounting 24/7 for skilled offshore accountants. I mean, that's a real option for firms that are struggling with, the rising cost of labor here.
Oh, for sure. And it really highlights how that traditional model,
Yeah,
everyone in the office 5 days a week, it's not the only way to do it anymore.
exactly.
And speaking of tech, another thing the material really dives into is the whole automation piece, like how automation is transforming accounting. And this is where we see the real potential for boosting capacity.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We're talking about AI doing routine bookkeeping,
Hmm.
machine learning, helping with audits, cloud-based platforms that streamline your financial reporting. And it's not sci-fi. This stuff is real and it's available right now. And it can make a huge difference in your efficiency, right? Because it's taking those tasks that are, so repetitive and prone to errors, and it's freeing up your people to do that more complex and strategic work.
Right. I mean, think about it. Like all those hours that you used to spend on manual data entry or just chasing down documents, now you can take that time and you can build relationships with your clients, do deeper financial analysis, or just give everyone a little breathing room, which honestly can lead to better quality work overall.
Right, yeah.
And the material has this really great call to action. It's like, okay, if you are still doing things manually, it's time to look into tools like QuickBooks Online, Zero, or any of those AI-powered solutions. Like how much do you think a firm could boost their capacity just by embracing technology?
Oh, it could be enormous. Think about it. You take staff hours, significant hours that were spent on data entry, and you shift that to client advisory services. Not only can you serve more clients, but you're offering these higher value services, which means more revenue and a better reputation.
Right. Makes sense.
And shifting gears a bit to the leadership side of growth, they also talk about this idea of dedicated growth leadership.
Yeah, the whole chief growth officer thing. Like a CGO,
Right.
someone whose entire focus is on bringing in new clients, expanding your services, and really just looking at the big picture of how your firm is developing.
Right.
And it's a proactive stance, right? It's not just waiting for something to happen. It's like going out and making it happen.
Yeah.
And it asks you, the listener, a really interesting question. Who in your firm is responsible for strategic growth? And if you don't know, it suggests that maybe it's time to delegate that responsibility clearly, or even hire someone whose only job is to focus on growth.
Makes sense to me. I mean, if no one's steering the ship, it's not gonna get very far.
Right. And then it goes even further. So you're focusing on growth, but it's about looking beyond those traditional accounting services.
Right. Because clients are they're looking for strategic insights, not just basic compliance. They want a partner to help them plan for their financial future.
Right? Yeah.
It's not just about, getting your taxes filed on time anymore.
Right. Exactly.
And they use these examples like offering advisory services, financial planning, or even industry-specific consulting. And it asks you some really important questions. Can your firm offer cash flow forecasting? Can you do tax strategy consulting? Can you be a virtual CFO? And it really encourages you to look at what your clients actually need and find those opportunities to diversify your offerings, to set yourself apart.
Right. It's about evolving, going from just being a service provider to a real strategic partner.
Absolutely. And, another big piece of this whole capacity puzzle is your team, right? Like the material really stresses how important it is to invest in your people. Oh, totally. Yeah. Your team is the heart of it all. I mean, they're the engine that drives everything.
Right.
And if you invest in them, professional development, training programs, help them get those certifications, CPA, CMA, even certifications in specific cloud software.
Right.
Not only are you helping them, but you are significantly boosting the capabilities of your entire firm.
Absolutely. It's a win-win.
And they also have this really practical tip. Host regular training sessions every month, or sponsor professional certifications for your team.
Oh, I love that.
And they connect that directly to better employee satisfaction, people stay longer, and the quality of work is higher.
It just makes sense.
Yeah.
And, a well-trained team, that's a team that can handle those complex client needs. It really contributes to your ability to scale.
Yeah.
And then speaking of clients, another piece of the puzzle is nurturing those relationships.
Yeah, that's the core of any service business, right?
Right.
Strong client relationships.
Right. And the material emphasizes how important it is to build that trust, communicate proactively, not just when there's a problem, and to really personalize your services.
Right.
So each client feels understood.
Yeah. And they made a good point about this. Clients really appreciate it when their accounting firm takes the time to actually understand their industry, the challenges they're facing, and the opportunities they have.
Right.
And that deeper understanding, it helps you give better advice, and it strengthens those relationships for the long haul. And they also had a really practical tip here. Schedule regular check-ins with your clients, even when it's not tax season.
That's such good advice.
Yeah, those conversations can uncover new needs, lead to new opportunities, maybe even referrals. It's just a good habit.
It's about showing them that you are invested in their success all the time, not just when you need something from them.
Exact.
And finally, the material wraps up with this idea that growth needs to be strategic. It has to be intentional. It can't just happen randomly.
Right. They really highlight how important it is to have a roadmap, with specific, measurable goals. How are we going to expand? How are we going to use technology? What about hiring? And they give this really important reminder. Don't let growth sacrifice quality.
Oh, that's so important.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, that's what your firm's reputation is built on.
Yeah.
And their key takeaway here is this. Set key performance indicators, KPIs, and review them regularly, like every quarter. Make sure you're on track. Make adjustments as you go.
Accountability.
Exactly.
So, when we look at the big picture here, it's clear that scaling your firm isn't just about working more hours. It's about working smarter and being more strategic. And that involves really looking at your operations, embracing things like remote work, using technology to automate things, having leadership that's focused on growth, expanding your services, investing in your people, and nurturing those client relationships. And having a plan, having a roadmap to guide your growth.
Yeah, that's it. And by focusing on all of these areas, you're not just expanding your firm. You are building something that is more resilient, more efficient, and ultimately more successful. You're setting yourself up for the long haul.
And on that note, the material ends with this final thought, and it's for you, the listener. If you are exploring different ways to manage staffing costs, to access skilled accounting professionals, consider looking into resources like Remote Accounting 24/7. They highlight how it can help you scale without all that overhead. Definitely something to keep in mind as you're developing your growth strategy.
Yeah, for sure.
So thanks for taking this deep dive with us today. We hope it's given you some valuable food for thought
Yeah,
to help your firm continue to thrive and
absolutely.
grow.